Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Welcome to you live from Gombe, where Gombe Investment Summit 2022 is holding. It's christened Go Invest 2022. Now we've got His Excellency Muhammadu Inuwa, Governor of Gombe State. Good morning, Your Excellency. Thank you for coming on today.
It's my pleasure. Welcome to Gombe.
Thank you. Well, talking about investing in Gombe, in the northeast area, I mean, people will naively ask, wait a minute, did you say investment summit in Gombe, given the security concerns around the region, why do you still think people will want to come and invest here?
Well, investment and, in fact, issues to do with development continue. You must carry on no matter how hard the times. And even though we are located in the northeast with the security challenges, especially as those that originated from the Boko Haram insurgency and other, security challenges that abound in the whole of the country, we are not doing badly in terms of managing our internal security. And by the accounts of the Nigerian police itself and the security tracker, we are number one on top in terms of security and social services in the northeast region. And that is why we feel no matter how, there's a need for us to get out to people, invite them, and let them come and explore and see how best they can join with us so that we can develop
Could you shed a little more light? When, the state says we're number one in terms of some of these parameters, is it as a result of what? There's been no attacks, or they repelled the attacks, did they nip them in the bud? So how did they come about being number one?
Several other factors, not just one. You see, for assessments to be done properly, there are a lot of variables that need to be considered. But principally security, and social services like health care, good schools, good access road in terms of infrastructure, and equally opportunities that abound either commercially or industrially within the environment. And so many other factors. And I think Gombe is able to manage all those, that we are able to get to the number one in terms of ease of doing business in the 2021 assessment. And that was done by KPMG, one of the most reputable consultants, not us, not anybody else.
Your Excellency, the question Chamberlain asked you first is about perception. And to many people, perception is reality. Do a simple Google search of Northeast Nigeria, what pops up. Part of the things that pops up would be security. I mean, there are those who wonder, what's the use of making money that I will not be able to live long enough to spend? So what are you doing about the image, that perception of the Northeast, the entire region, not being safe? We know it is safe. I mean, we are here and we have experienced it quite a bit. But what is being done about the perception? Because unless we do something about that perception, getting people to come in and stay for long, that might be an issue.
I think for that question to be answered, I need to maybe urge you people, the press people, to start to think inwards and be outward looking, in order to sell Nigeria on the positive framework instead of the negatives. Reality on ground doesn't show that all those issues that you mentioned have gotten to that level, that should not, should warrant globally, internationally, people looking at Nigeria to that extent. So I think administrators, governors, business people, and the journalists, all Nigerians have to come on board, trying to sell Nigeria on the positive image rather than the negative side of it. There is crime everywhere in the world, but taking our own to that level, I think we need to do a lot in order to downsize it and make us look positive instead of negative on the global side.
Your Excellency, based on that view about the fragility of Gombe State, it is said it is the understanding in the investment environment that the FDIs will come based on the measure of confidence put in place by the domestic direct investors. So what do you have on ground to boost the confidence of the foreign direct investors that, yes, indeed, the domestic investors are here, this is the quantum of profit that they have made. Who are the domestic investors who are here on ground? So what do you have on ground?
Well, I agree with you. Charity begins at home. And back home, so as a result of the somehow lackadaisical attitude by which maybe commercialization, industrialization, or whatever I pursued in the past, there is really a low ebb in terms of that. But it's still in that Gombe that 40 years ago, Ashaka Cement Company was established and had been in production for 40 years, producing not less than 1 million tons, and that has sold for all that long. Equally, if you go around, you'll see a lot of commercial activity. Ashaka is virtually the biggest industry around us. But close to us, there is Savannah Sugar. Formerly, there was Beige Fruit, which was processing vegetables and fruits and tomato, and was being exported elsewhere. Somehow, something got amiss, and I think that's what we are doing now to try and bring back all those, the good old days, so that our future will now be brighter and our young ones will be engaged.
You have this lofty project, the industrial park. What is the, how do I call it, how, if you can explain to us why you thought that that industrial park will be appropriate at this time, and how is the region going to benefit from it?
Well, the industrial park is a 1,000 hectare parcel of land that we segmented into 3 phases. The first phase, on which we are working now, close to completion, about 85% completed. By December, inshallah, it will be completed. The second part of it, we've been talking, and we've even gone to some degree of conclusion with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Finance, with a view to setting up an agro-processing zone, which by the plans of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the African Development Bank, there is supposed to be one in each geopolitical zone. And because of the comparative advantage of Gombe, we are putting 1/3 of it equally to accommodate the agri-processing zone. Already we've reached, we've granted access and in fact approval for the Niger Delta Power Holding Company to put up a 250 megawatts solar farm that will generate
All right, welcome back. We do apologize for that break. We're just talking about the industrial park, the 10-year development plan. Your Excellency, you were trying to shed light on that 10-year development plan. And I know one of the key issues people usually wonder is ensuring that we come up with plans that you can control, because even if you were to see the entire your tenure through, max is 8 years. And if it's a 10-year plan, the remaining 2 years could make or mar that plan. You must have thought about that. So what's the consideration?
Right from the onset, we engaged people at all levels, from the ward, local government to state level. And equally beyond that, we escalated and got the endorsement of the State House of Assembly, making it a document that is owned by the people. And people within us, even the local governments, the spirit of competition has been instilled on the people. With that agenda, I think no part of the state is left behind. And so people will be competing to ensure that they align and move it forward and realize it.
Would they be breaking any law if anyone comes in and doesn't?
No, it's not really,
the
it's no law as such. But the fact that there's direct involvement of the people and the people on it, it means they will safeguard it. So whether there's law or not, but with the stamping alone of the House of Assembly means a lot. And going forward, if this administration continues, we shall see that we move in double locks to cover of what is there. But development is not a one-day issue. It's something that has to transcend various administrations as long as it is sustained. And that is what we are doing. So we'll make sure that the message reaches the people and that the people safeguard it so that at the end of the day, it is on them that the benefit will go to. And they will clearly defend it, no matter how.
Yeah, you have reiterated that the SDGs are at the heart of the actualization of the goals of the industrial park. We've talked a lot about the value chain in the industrial park. How are you ensuring that the people own the process from the agricultural development to manufacturing? One of the officials said that there's also housing incorporated. So are the people going to be empowered to own land there, to own houses there, such that the entire process, it's a collective commonwealth for the people?
Indeed, yes. And one of the parameters used, in terms of assessing the enabling business environment is to access, ownership, of land and title with ease. As such, that will be the guiding factor as to what we do on the park. And eventually, there will be cohabitation for people, industries, administrative facilities, and security facilities, whatever. So along the line, I think we shall meet all targets and give people the comfort and convenience they need for investment to thrive in that location.
Your Excellency,
Yep.
Still talking about development, I'd like you to speak to us about data. I'm happy about the award of ease of doing business, and the Commissioner of Finance already told us that government is putting in again to receive the award again. But this development that we're talking about, for it to be sustainable, a number of other things will be very important. Employment figures need to come down, literacy levels need to rise, and I know that you've been doing a lot in terms of education and all of that. Speak to us about some of those other figures and how this development will help to make the figures look better. Literacy figures, employment figures, poverty figures, and all of those things.
I think all those factors have been, taken care of in our development plan, and we are clearly pursuing to see to the actualization of all those targets we set in the plans. For example, when we came in, by 2019 September, we went to launch the Basic Education and Service Delivery for All. By the accounts of UNICEF and the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics then, we had about 550,000 out-of-school children in Gombe alone. But myself, I disputed that and even claimed that it was higher because for so many reasons. Influx of IDPs that found heaven in Gombe, that relocated, and growth. Instead of maybe, because there was a gap of about 2 years or so. But within these 2 years plus now, we've been able to obtain nearly 400,000 out of school children and took them back to school. Not only that, our skill acquisition centers, yes, some of them have not gone the way we wanted, but we expanded on more and tried to maintain and bring back those that have failed, and we are working towards getting them better. We have the belief that training in vocation and skills is even more and better, especially with a view to getting the country or the state industrialized, than giving formal certificate Western education, which will not yield you any job, especially these days. Government alone, providing white-collar jobs, can never take Nigeria outside the woods that we are in today. The private sector, developed with this initiative that we have, is capable of absorbing a greater part. 65% of our youth, of the population are youth between the ages of, up to 45, and most of them, their accounts are the same elsewhere. But that of the Northeast is even worse, because by the indices, the Northeast and the Northwest are the lowest in terms of economic prosperity in this country. So opening up by providing the basics and connecting the odds and the rights, I think it's going to help us out of the situation.
So I'm happy. Sorry. I'm happy that you talked about the young people, and it's a major concern. The world is talking about the youth bulge. Africa, Nigeria itself is talking about some 60–70% of the voting population being, young people. What's their buy-in? We know generally young people are not very patient with government at various levels. What's the buy-in strategy, sustainable buy-in strategy for young people?
Well, that is a very, very Herculean task, I know. And it is a global problem, but that of Nigeria is unique, especially up north here where the numbers are very high. But along the line, we've been able to convince them, take them. Like, for example, in one initiative we have that we call GOSTEC, Gombe Security, Traffic and Environment Control Corps, we've been able to engage. We plan to engage 2,000. We've engaged a lot of them, in agricultural practice through our agricultural, improvement initiative, and also in production. You might have gone to the small industrial cluster we have around for oil and rice milling. When you go, you'll be amazed. You see the numbers; they are really quite huge. I think about 25,000 of them, mostly youth, engaged in production. In fact, that is one of the reasons that motivated us to think of getting bigger and putting up better places so that we'll accommodate them going forward.
Speaking of the literacy levels that Ayo raised initially, how has your education drive been able to reduce the number of out-of-school children? And while you're answering that, also talk about girl child education. What's your disposition, towards improving the lot of girl children?
We did not segregate in terms of, trying to see that we are all inclusive. And this administration in particular has given prominence to women so that we can encourage the girl child, to see and follow their steps. We've been able to, ensure that amongst our local government chairmen there is a woman. We've been able to ensure that all local governments have at least a woman councillor, so that it could be a source of motivation for the young girl child. And equally, with the chairperson of the Civil Service Commission is a woman. And equally, the chairperson of the Teacher Service Commission. There's a lot of recognition given to women. In fact, as of today, the acting chief judge too is a woman. So the women are carried along, and they are encouraging the girl child as well to copy them.
So what are the numbers
forward
at the elementary education level to the secondary level that you have been able to shore up in terms of enrollment?
I don't have the statistics of it, but at least the general population is what we are considering. We don't segregate. That is what I mentioned. The girl and the male children are really carried along. We are trying to ensure that we are educated, 100% literate very soon, inshallah, in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goals.
The state prides itself as an SME state. How so?
It's so because by the nature of the economy around, we are virtually within the either middle or low class of the economic strata of this country. So the small and medium scale enterprises are really the focus. They're the key. And we have interface with them, whether it's through their cooperative societies or through trade unions. And they're keen into whatever agenda government has with regards to enhancing and focusing on small and medium enterprise
On that same thing,
Okay.
I'm very curious.
Yeah, but
give me 60 seconds.
Cat.
Well, I'm
we
not
need
a
to
cat.
go to break. Don't worry, we need to make money. We'll be right back in just a moment. Stay with us. Amadou Yaya, Governor of Gombe State. Of course, yes, we're coming to you live from Gombe. Go Invest 2022 is holding this year. And we're talking about the SMEs. You got a question, right?
Yes, perhaps particularly because on the average, it's a global standard that every economy is sustained by 60, 70%, 60, 70% of the way by small and medium enterprises. The concern most of the time has always been their sustainability. Most people are in business for sustenance, not for sustainability. Your strategy clearly, you clearly have a strategy for helping them to be sustainable so that the economy of Gombe State can grow as they grow. What is the strategy for them? Because it's one thing for you to have the strategy for them. It's another thing for them to understand the goal of government in helping the economy of Gombe State to grow.
Well, for several reasons, we have a continuous engagement, especially with those that have set up, small industries and enterprises. We are part and parcel of them. They are part and parcel of us. We are interrelating. And if you go by the number of applications, even as at today, at the Muhammadu Buhari Industrial Park, we find that out of close to 300, over 200 are the small and medium enterprises that are from within, not somewhere else. And I think we have the window to accommodate as much as possible. We'll expand on that and ensure that not only within Gombe, within the other parts of the state, in the other senatorial districts, we're able to have such clusters that will encourage, and facilitate them keen into real production, so that along the value chains of either agricultural production, agro-allied processing, marketing, and distribution, we're able to uptake a number of the people.
How about business education for them? I mean, once you make profit, they just want to spend. So what's the...
No. The typical Gombe person, if you go around, you find that, by nature, is an entrepreneur, very skilled, no matter how. Even if not in the, international financial standard, at least with the rudiments of proper financial management for him to survive in his own business. I think we'll be able to. And we've set up a microfinance bank owned by the state that is spread within all the local governments. And there are other 5 more microfinance banks within the state. So 6 microfinance banks in the small state that is just about 20,000 square kilometers, I think are not doing badly. Plus, the effect of other banks and financial houses that are supporting small and medium enterprise. The spirit or idea of financial management, I think, has been inculcated in them for quite a while.
For the big businesses, Your Excellency, I know it's said that, government has no business doing business. Regardless, what's the equity that the Gombe State government hopes to, take when he begins to sign those documents, the dotted lines with the big corporations that you intend to attract to the state, such that you can add value to the products that are coming to Gombe State, and Gombe can have some form of a sense of belonging in whatever will be taken off as big business.
There's no fixed percentage of equity. It depends on what you get on the negotiating table and your ability to finance what you intend to take. But nonetheless, the order these days is for government, instead of directly investing, to encourage private investors to put in money. Luckily, the Gombe State Investment and Property Development Company is chaired by, in fact, has a complement of board members that are very renowned and very knowledgeable in financial management and financial, inclusion. We've been able to, see that whatever we do and whatever we're doing is eventually going to go into the private hands, because the private hands better managers in terms of, operations of businesses or economic activities.
But the government would own something at least, such that you can protect the interests of the population.
But our experience has it that, for example, Ashaka, that I've told you has been there for 40 years, was initially owned by a conglomeration of states through the NNIL, the NNDC, and Northeast or Bauchi State, and whatever. But at the end of it, it had to go off. The Bureau for Public Enterprise is busy trying to sell off all the assets so that government, by its nature, government doesn't manage businesses well. So if we encourage the private sector, I think it will be for the betterment of the system, and it may be more sustainable.
Well, just to shed light on this, because you were speaking about private sector, access to capital, but some data here, even though it was as of December 31st, 2020, Gombe total debt stock was what, 98.86 billion. That made it, 25th most indebted in the country with 84.97 billion naira domestic debt and the like. So what are you doing to free up capital? Because if it continues this way, isn't all those SMEs that you have, isn't this going to hamper their access to capital?
Not really. We have set up a revenue optimization company that is coordinating all the revenue yielding assets of the state, and we've taken it along the line, of profitability instead of just putting in for, and whatever we do, we ensure that at least there is returns, and we are able to manage, the debt profile of the state, even though, it's something that is not built over one day. We inherited, and we are trying to manage, put on the table. I think net, what we repaid and what we are able to borrow is for us to continue, expanding on providing social services. I think we are better off than many other states. Our 35th position notwithstanding.
I know the state thumps its chest concerning this World Bank Assisted States Financial Transparency Accountability Program.
Yes,
SafeTAS.
Yeah.
So is this something that the state is looking to sustain in terms of institutionalizing that moving forward? Because it's supposed to be a 4-year program. So
that has been the spirit on which SafeTAS itself was built, and the project or program has closed now, but sustainability was part, of the, the whole agenda, and we've provided the framework on which we shall sustain all our fiscal regimes and policies over time. And going forward, we have imbibed that spirit of, ensuring that whatever we do is sustainable. Because if we abandon, it will mean we go back to ground zero, which is not what we need now.
So what is the thinking? I know one of the commissioners spoke about you reduce your recurrent expenditure. So if more investments come into the state, you may require more hands to do a couple of other things. So is it that you put a seal? How did you reduce recurrent expenditure?
Well, you see, block leakages, reduce unnecessary overheads, and leverage the little savings to be put in better ways that will be more beneficial to the people. That is principally what we did. But above all, see, if at all sustainability is to be guaranteed, the framework on which good governance is ensured, that can leverage on little savings, to be put into capital projects that can impact on the lives of the people is the key. And that is principally what we are doing. So I don't think what you are saying may be apt compared to going by the basis on which Gombe is being managed these days.
I know that it's an election year.
Yep.
And if you're coming up on investments in an election year, what was the thinking with the team? Because many will say, well, wait a minute, what if we're not sure if you're going to return? Well, should we still come and invest, or should we wait until after the elections?
Well, investors, yes, could have that fear, but let me assure them that for Gombe in particular, with the demagogue and the principles on which we build, the business environment, and are pursuing to see that there's sustainability in the business environment, they should have there is no cause for alarm, and they shouldn't have any fear. We will ensure that whatever happens, there is guarantee for its investment, and there is guarantee for return on investment for serious investors.
Your Excellency, talk to us about the grazing reserves, and the Commissioner talked about the delay in the takeoff because of the critical nature of that subject, as it would address conflict resolution between farmers and herders. I'd like to know why the state government is choosing grazing reserves rather than an option that would encourage, the herders to take up a more sedentary lifestyle, like what the Kaduna state government is doing with its own, ranching solution.
What we see, where we are talking of is where was the grazing reserve. It's a very huge parcel of land, maybe as big as the size of maybe a state in the southeast. 144,000 hectares of land, that is gazetted and that can provide for all those ranches that you mentioned. But the idea is not only just for, livestock production, but utilizing livestock to develop the value chain. If along the line you put a slaughterhouse, a cold store, provision for medical facilities for the livestock, businesses evolve around such activities. And when that is done, it will mean that there is an ecosystem, that sustains business and, in fact, environment joined together. That is one of the keys. There is advantage in having that, and there is advantage in going the way of having a grazing reserve. By the accounts we have, since 1928, a grazing reserve was established in Gombe by the colonial administration. And as of today, there are 56. Yes, there has been a lot of encroachment and vandalization on the issues, as normal, as usual, as it happens elsewhere. But specifically, the grazing reserve is really being protected, and we are really partnering. Right now, Mexico is assisting in seeing how water could be transferred from the river Gongola to come downstream, so that there will be availability of water.
So when will it take on life? When will it become a reality?
Now, well, you see, there are so many issues attached to it, part of which is, getting committed and serious investors. Centralization or over-centralization of policy and implementation somehow hampers development. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the federal government, through the National Livestock Transformation Project, has been working on livestock transformation since 2017. Today, we are some 5 years away, and nothing serious has been done, and that is really not helping matters. Equally, over politicizing issues. Because, for example, Taraba State, where a lot of livestock abound and there is available land, has no reason to insist on ranching, when even by the nature of the place, ranches are already existing there. There must be flexibility, and each state could go with its peculiarities in order to ensure that, you sustain business and you give life to people, and their livelihoods too are protected. Our people here are 85% farmers, peasant farmers for that matter, and within them, either involved in livestock or crop production. So taking care of them should be the business of government.
Your Excellency, I'd like to follow up on the livestock part that Bukola just mentioned to you, which you responded to. Scaling it up and sustaining it long term, I think it is something that will be of value. Yes. I remember, was it the Federal Ministry of Agriculture saying that the value of the livestock sector, the livestock sector of agriculture in Nigeria is worth something in the region of 30 trillion naira.
Yep.
Now, you've also talked about how the slow government is, federal government is in getting these things off the ground. Why that is, you're the governor, you might be able to know. But in terms of getting this off the ground from Gombe, according to the plan that you have with your lieutenants, agriculture coming tops and livestock definitely playing a significant role. What, in your opinion, would be the go-to thing for any investor watching you right now and saying, I want to go there and do livestock and bring out return on investment and perhaps stay here for more than 40 years, going by what Ashaka Cement has done?
Yeah. I think one consideration for the enabling environment, provision of such, facilities like the agricultural or the livestock or grazing reserves that we mentioned, and facilitation of, relationships with the business community and accessibility to market. I think Gombe being central with all those facilities I mentioned is the key. I think that is our selling point. And I would like to encourage people to come and see, because seeing is believing. I would prefer that people come, take the risk, come and evaluate and give us, what we deserve by coming to join us.
Any incentives?
Oh, certainly.
Incentives?
Incentives. Well, not only the one I mentioned, but in terms of, tax holiday, in terms of, provision of skilled, or semi-skilled, manpower, which is required. And our efforts that we are making towards, industrializing and providing, technological knowledge to our children should be an advantage.
Well, speaking about the business of politics, Well,
I'm sorry.
Well, the different.
Are you a politician?
I'm not. I know it's investment, but there's still business of politics, isn't it? Well, the opposition in the States has accused your party of you of being high-handed in handling affairs in the States. They say demolition of their campaign offices and things like that, saying the States have just not been tolerating them in the States here.
But that's not true. You can't go to Lagos and put up a structure anyhow that has not formal approval that, can temper onto the access or security or peace of the people. That structure you mentioned is sited directly opposite the presidential lodge. It's directly, just some 10 meters in between a government quarters that is housing, the justices of the Court of Appeal. It's directly on the road that leads to the government house. And so many other, there are businesses, within the premise, and did not get the clear consent or approval of the regulatory authorities to turn it into a political office. And with the risk attached, especially to, in these days, when you cannot guarantee the conduct of youth vanguards that could be engaged, there is need for policy to be ensured that, to be complied with, and there is need to be assured that you secure the lives and properties of the people. That is the key.
So what was their error? Was it that they didn't get approval, or they turned it into a political office where they should not have?
Look, as at today, that property has not paid ground rent in the last 25 years. 2, the application they sent was not for a political party office. It was for a good governance group that we feel that could be essential. And it was only for them to put a billboard, not to turn it into a political campaign office. 3, there had been businesses around. You can't cohabitate, a political office with a pharmacy, with a supermarket, and with other businesses when, you are exposing them to such risks. Those are the factors that people must consider. It's not that we are pulling. In fact, as at today, APC is a dominant party in Gombe. We shouldn't fear to the extent that we destroy. Rather, we help to build.
But they said APC just came on board. How is it a dominant party all of a sudden in Gombe?
We have go and find out. 3 senators, 6 members of the House of Reps, myself as governor, and 19 out of 24 members of the House of Assembly. So how do you explain that?
But for that building, when did the state discover this error? Because, why wait until now before all of these things came through?
It was within the splash of how it happened and what we did. Nothing more.
But as things turn out now, because they are thumping their chest saying, look, Gombe State has always been PDP, and they are boasting that they will make sure that yourself don't return.
The people are there to judge. Give us the time, and we'll see. I'm telling you, we are ready. We shall return back to office by the grace of God.
Let's look at national politics now as we move away from state politics. Your Excellency, what's your disposition towards your party's Muslim ticket and the opposition within the party that has been branded unserious, posed by the former speaker and Mr. Babachir?
Well, you see, it depends on the understanding and how people look at this thing. Politicians could go to any length, trying to dissuade or confuse people. But for me, I think it's not religion. Neither is it tribe nor region that is the solution to the Nigerian problem. Quality of leadership is the key. And I think the team we have is capable and it can lead Nigeria out of the woods.
One of the things that will also come to many people is, okay, APC continues to talk about the 16 years of PDP and how it wasn't fantastic as far as the APC is concerned. But then there are those who are also asking the question, what's APC got to market with? Why should the people say, okay, let's try that one more time?
You have to understand that, you see, Nigeria is within the global village. The dynamics, and the odds that we come to play with are really very, very tough. That, made it nearly impossible. In fact, it takes, the pragmatism and, and the doggedness of leaders like Buhari now to get us to this level. Well, if it were for the PDP, the whole thing started. It started and it continued. It may continue further, but there has to be light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why we want to see that we ensure good leaders succeed the president so that going ahead, Nigeria will improve.
Well,
and
Your
will be for the
Excellency,
better for it.
one of the things that many will find thorny is the ASU strike. It just ended after 8 straight months. So to many people, the question is, what value does this government place on education that the tertiary institution, which is supposed to be the think tank of the nation, would be on strike for 8 months?
But you see, that is an issue that, like, for example, I gave to you, that started earlier on. An agreement that was signed carelessly without really, ensuring that you can enforce or apply, is something that has triggered all this issue. And if you insist, for example, now that Nigeria has this problem financially, and you want to enforce those conditions that you couldn't much earlier, some 10, 12 years back, I think you are not doing justice
what do you
to
think?
yourself.
What do you think you formed that decision was? Do you think it was political?
To some extent, there must be some political element, to the extent to which that strike extended to this time.
No, I'm talking about the agreement that was signed then. You said it wasn't.
Oh yes.
You think it was political?
There must be some reason.
Politics on the part of whom now, Your Excellency? Government
as leaders, our words should be our bond. Whatever you agree on, make sure you can implement. If you can't implement, it will mean that it's going to be a burden on whoever succeeds you. The issue of ASU is not a new one. It's something that has been generated long ago. And if today we are not able to take a solution and solve it, it will continue going forward. Strike by ASU has been a recurring issue. And I have the belief that even now, it is going to be maybe on a temporary basis. We need to find a permanent solution to it.
What would you recommend?
I would recommend that we look inwards and see that we empower people enough, to be part of, as stakeholders, parents, associations, town communities, and whatever should be involved in managing these universities by way of support. Because federal government alone cannot support the Nigerian.
So is that some sort of autonomy?
The universities are already autonomous.
But not financially.
No, what do you mean?
Why do they get their funds?
From the federal government and from their own sources, because they have internal revenue which they generate.
Yeah, but they don't. When they say
government
when they
is subsidizing.
it goes to TSA. They don't just spend when they generate. Government
not really. Go and look deeper. A certain percentage goes to them for the day-to-day running of their own administration.
Government approves it for them. Allocates the funds.
No, they have councils, and they have administrative staff that are in charge. So councils are different from the federal government. But reliance on federal government for the resources to run the universities at this point in time, I think is something that we need to look deeper into.
Politicization of the issue. I'm interested in that. Is it on the part of the federal government or on the part of ASU? When you're talking about why it lasted this long?
You see, on both parts. because it could revert the other way.
So what politics was ASU playing?
Who knows whether they played into the gambit of...
You know what they refer to it as politics.
They played into the gambit of a political party. Who knows?
But just as we wind down, many the view that your party will not win the elections in 2019 because they wonder what records. Yeah, 2023 elections.
Many.
What record?
Many.
Yeah, there are lots of people who think no, we won't vote for your party.
That could be our own opinion, but I have confidence that we shall win power and form the federal government and even the states.
Or what would they be campaigning with?
What do you mean?
Is it the security situation in the country, performance of the economy, or the state of unemployment in 5 years?
What is the economy in UK and the US at the moment?
We don't live in UK. We voted no party
I'm telling you, it's a global issue. So compare your
situation. We didn't elect the party to fix our problems and not to tell us the global issue.
For the solution to come, we need to key in the serious disconnect that some maybe opposition politicians try to build within is not going to help the situation. We need to, there's a need for a connect between people, government, governance, and politics. I think that should be the drive.
All right. Well, we need to go at this point. We thank you very much indeed. We'll be speaking with His Excellency Muhammadu Inuwa, Governor of Gombe State, and we're talking about Gombe Investment Summit, even though the business of politics came up. It's an election year, so what could we do about that? Well,